She thought she was living the dream, a luxury home, a devoted husband, and a baby on the way. But one synced folder, one hidden file, and one woman's face shattered the perfect image forever. What she uncovered was not just an affair, but a calculated plan to replace her, erase her future, and steal the life she was building. This is a story of betrayal so cold, it turns love into evidence and marriage into a trap.
It's perfect, Julian murmured, his hand on my swollen belly, as we stood in the half-finished nursery at 7:15 a.m. Sunlight streamed through the bay window overlooking Seattle. My husband, the tech millionaire, seemed devoted, but across town, his ambitious new assistant was likely reviewing a secret folder, one that contained a plan to replace me before our baby was even born. His kiss felt cold on my forehead. They thought I was just a naive pregnant wife, but they underestimated me. Their scheme had one tiny flaw, and it was about to unravel everything. Thanks for joining my story. Where are you all from? And if you found out your partner was living a double life, would you feel more betrayed, furious, or just numb? Let me know below. Just a heads up, this story is a fictionalized account for dramatic effect. The names are made up, but the lesson about trusting your gut is devastatingly real. Let's start. My day began with a quiet hum, the sound of the new smart crib we just installed at exactly 7:15 in the morning. It wasn't an alarm, it was a notification, a soft chime from my tablet, which I was using to set up the nursery tech. I was sipping my decaf tea when it pinged. The warm liquid felt heavy in my stomach as I glanced at the screen. Outside, the Seattle skyline was clear, the Space Needle sharp against the blue. A new folder had been synced. My hand trembled. Tea sloshed onto the polished oak floor. I set the mug down, my heart beginning to race. I was in a silk robe Julian bought me, my bare feet cold on the floor as I looked at the tablet. The folder was named Contingency. My finger hovered over the icon, a feeling of dread washing over me. Two words stared back at me. For later. I tapped it open. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't baby photos, it was her. A young woman, maybe 25, with sharp eyes and a predatory smile. Her name, I'd later learn, was Chloe. In picture after picture, she was with Julian. My Julian. You're being replaced. The thought didn't feel real. Replaced. It was like a word from a different life, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. This had to be a mistake, a sick joke. I swiped again. There was a video. I pressed play, my hands shaking too much to hold the tablet steady. Her voice filled the nursery, cool, confident. He knows Eleanor's due in May, she was saying to someone off camera. The prenup is ironclad, but the infidelity clause expires 12 months post birth. We just have to be patient. The words were like ice in my veins. A plan. This was a calculated plan. Do you understand the plan? A man's voice asked. It was Julian's lawyer. Yes, I just need to keep playing the loving wife, Chloe replied with a laugh. The sound echoed in the quiet room. My loving husband's betrayal, documented and stored right next to our baby's ultrasound photos. I looked around the perfect pale yellow nursery, a room built on a foundation of lies. The public humiliation wasn't on a street, but right here, in the heart of my home. My bare feet felt glued to the floor. I forced myself to see the details. The tiny rocking horse, the crib Julian had assembled himself. The blinking light wasn't a camera, but the heart rate monitor on the baby sensor, pulsing steadily. They saw me as fragile, emotional, pregnant. The thought made my blood run cold. I sank to the floor, the tablet clattering beside me. The room felt like a cage, the walls closing in. The silence was deafening. I was alone in my $1 million home. The plush carpet did little to soften the blow. My shoulders ached with a tension that had been building for months. Through the window, I watched Julian's town car pull away, the loving husband on his way to work. I was the fool, that's what I was now. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. A calculated affair. Who, when, where, it was all there. Last night he said he was with investors. A time stamped photo showed him with her, at a restaurant I loved. No gaps, no plausible deniability, no mystery. This meant he didn't make a mistake. He was just hiding it. And I had stumbled upon the evidence. Other files started to download. Through the window, I saw the city waking up. Ferries crossing the sound, a man walking his dog in the park below. Normal. In here, my perfect life was shattering. I watched Julian's car disappear into downtown traffic. I looked at my reflection in the dark tablet screen. Inside this house was my life. Our life. Everything that proved we were happy. He hadn't let me suspect a thing. My mind reeled. An affair this deep doesn't happen without a plan. There was a victim. Me and my unborn child. Someone who, according to this folder, Julian planned to discard. But how? I stared at the city, the buildings golden in the morning light, and one thought cut through my grief. He made a mistake. He thinks he can just replace me. He thinks I'll break down and sign whatever papers he puts in front of me. He doesn't know who I am. He forgot what I used to do. Before I was his wife, I was one of the top art authenticators in the country. I find forgeries, I spot fakes, I uncover deception that people think is perfectly hidden, and I'm going to uncover every lie he's ever told. The tablet chimed again. A new file appeared. My reflection stared back from the screen. Pale face, designer robe, a perfect picture of a pampered wife. And I looked like exactly what he thought I was, naive. But I wasn't. I ran through the facts, the secret folder, the video of Chloe, the timeline, an airtight case of betrayal. So why was this folder here? The answer hit me like ice. Because someone wanted me to find it. Someone else planned this. Someone knew exactly how to expose him. The question was who and why. A new icon appeared on the screen, a draft of a divorce settlement. Then I saw the details, a block of text outlining terms that were anything but standard. Cold, impersonal, a place where our marriage was being processed like a hostile takeover. My stomach twisted. This was real. This was happening. In a few months, he planned to have me served, signed, and silenced. But I wouldn't panic. Panic doesn't protect your child. I was going to stay calm. I was going to use every skill I had to prove what he was, because that's what this was, a setup, a betrayal so clean that he thought I'd just walk away, confident he held all the cards. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Someone smart, someone who knew his secrets, his accounts, his life. The thought made my blood run cold. The house was utterly silent, the only sound my own heartbeat. The silence was deafening. This was it. I pushed myself up, my hand on the wall for support. I stood there in my silk robe, alone, while the city moved on without me. A new notification popped up, a calendar invite. Finalize Eleanor's exit package. I nodded to myself. I didn't trust myself to speak. As I walked towards the kitchen, I made myself a promise. I would find out everything. I will prove what he is, and I will make sure he and his mistress pay for this. I didn't know it yet, but the person who helped me was someone I never expected. The minutes I spent staring at that screen felt like an eternity. My heart was already bruised. The betrayal cut deeper with every new file that synced, and I tried to breathe, but nothing helped. Through the nursery window, I watched the world go on. Ferries crossing Elliott Bay, people jogging along the waterfront, living normal lives. I used to be one of them. The tablet chimed again. It was a document, Project Nightingale, a business proposal. My stomach dropped. The victim wasn't just me, it was our shared assets, our future, everything. I saw a name I recognized. Julian's mother. I heard his voice in my head. You picked the wrong person to betray. I didn't do anything wrong, I whispered to the empty room. The document laid out their plan. Our penthouse was a cold fortress with floor-to-ceiling windows. I walked through the silent hallway, the smell of expensive cleaner in the air. The kitchen was a large room with a marble island. I looked at my reflection in the polished chrome of the espresso machine. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Eleanor Vance, I thought to myself. The data points of my life scrolled through my mind. My date of birth, our address, my entire world reduced to line items in his financial scheme. The charges weren't legal, but emotional. Betrayal, deceit, endangering our child's future. I finally looked at my own face and saw not contempt, but determination. I would get fingerprints, his, on everything. My thumb was pressed to the glass, then my index finger all the way to my pinky. A camera flashed, bleaching the world white. They put a board in my hands with my new identity, a name and a string of numbers. My silk pajamas felt absurdly out of place. Cell 4, Officer Hale said to his partner. We passed a man arguing with a ghost and a woman quietly weeping. The air was thick with the stench of despair and old disinfectant. Cell 4 was a concrete box. The officer unlocked my cuffs, motioning me into the cage. The detective assigned will be in to see you. Might be a while. The steel door slammed, its echo a final metallic clang. I sat on the freezing slab, the walls closing in, 6 feet by 9. No daylight, just the buzz of a dying bulb overhead. Eleanor Riley. I turned the name over in my mind. It was vaguely familiar. I sifted through architects, clients, old classmates, nothing but the last name Riley, Detective Mark Riley. His picture had been all over society pages after that fundraiser my family hosted last spring, a rising star in the Chicago PD. His pregnant wife was the victim. My God, a wave of nausea hit me. If the woman in the hospital was a cop's wife, this entire precinct would be out for blood. My story wouldn't matter. They'd have a piece of evidence, any piece, and build their case around it. The force protects its own. I was already the villain in their story. I had to think clearly. Last night, 10 p.m., a video conference with our Tokyo partners. I was on that call for a solid hour, screen sharing architectural plans. The whole thing was recorded, saved to the cloud. That was my alibi. Footsteps approached. A woman in a smart pantsuit, detective's badge clipped to her belt, stopped and stared in at me. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ava Sterling? She asked. Someone's arranged your release. I looked up, confused. Your family's lawyer is here, Julian Croft. Bail was set at $750,000. $750,000. My father? A cold dread washed over me. I hadn't made a call. How could he possibly know? I didn't contact him, I stated. She gave a slight shrug. He contacted us, said he heard there was a situation. She turned the key in the lock. You're being released pending arraignment. Who told him? I have no idea. A friend on the force, maybe. She pointed me down the corridor. Mr. Croft is in the first room. A friend on the force who called my father at dawn, not an hour after my arrest. My father, who I hadn't seen in months, who then called the best defense attorney in Chicago. I found him in a small, sterile room. A man in a tailored suit, early 50s, with silvering temples and the calm demeanor of someone who bills by the minute. Miss Sterling? His voice was like polished granite. Julian Croft. Your father engaged my services. I just stared. How did he know? Croft's smile was a careful corporate thing. The Davenport name carries a certain weight in this city. This is a high-profile incident, a detective's family. It happened at 8 a.m. This isn't news yet. Your father is a man of considerable influence. Let's get you home. I have to know how Ava. His voice sharpened just enough. You are facing a litany of serious charges. Attempted murder of an officer's pregnant wife. The state's attorney will want a conviction. My phone, suddenly on the table, vibrated. An officer must have left my things. I snatched it. 36 missed calls. A text from my father, Arthur. Do not speak to anyone. Come directly to the penthouse. From my mother, Catherine. Chloe is an absolute wreck. Please come home. I read the last text again. Chloe is an absolute wreck. My sister. Why would Chloe be a wreck? She had no idea I'd even been arrested. No one did. Unless Mr. Croft watched me, his expression unreadable. I need my laptop from my loft, I said. I need to see what happened. Your father wants everyone at the estate for a family meeting. I'll be there this evening. First, I need answers. Croft's expression tightened. Your father was quite insistent, and I'm insisting on going to my own home. I got to my feet. Thank you for handling the bail. My office will be in touch. I walked out, leaving him standing there. Outside, the Chicago morning was cool and gray. I stood on the precinct steps, released but utterly trapped, and a single terrifying thought surfaced. Something is deeply wrong with my family. My father found out too quickly. My mother's text about Chloe being a wreck made no sense. I pulled out my phone, opening the security app for my building. I had to see the camera logs from my private garage. I needed to see my car. The app connected, and my heart stopped. My account had been accessed at 2:47 a.m. from an IP address I knew by heart. The Davenport Tower. Julian Croft was exactly the kind of man my father kept on retainer. Expensive suit, cold smile. The station's air conditioning hummed, but I was still shivering in my pajamas. My wrists were bruised from the cuffs. Croft, by contrast, was immaculate. He was the embodiment of wealth. He represented the kind of money that made inconvenient truths vanish. Your father reached out to me at 8:15 this morning, he explained, placing a slim file on the table. Bail was $750,000. It's been handled. You can leave. I looked at the file but made no move to touch it. How did he know? Croft's professional smile never wavered. Word gets around quickly in certain circles, especially with a detective's family involved. I was brought in at 7:30. It's not public knowledge. Your father has a long reach, a reach that told him I was taken from my loft before my own company even knew I was missing. I leaned in, before anyone outside of this precinct knew. Croft's smile became a thin line. I am not privy to your father's sources. What's important is that he secured your freedom. Why? The word echoed in the small room. Croft paused. He's your father. We haven't spoken in 6 months. Family is family, Miss Sterling. He opened the file. Now about our strategy. You're looking at attempted murder, aggravated battery, leaving the scene of an accident. The victim, Eleanor Riley, is pregnant. The DA will make this a crusade. Her 7-year-old was also in the car. A knot of ice formed in my gut. 7 years old. I didn't do this. That will be our position. But the evidence as it stands is compelling. He slid a paper forward. Your car was found abandoned 2 blocks from the scene. Your prescription medication was on the passenger seat. We must construct a solid alibi. And quickly. What medication? He checked his notes. A bottle of sumatriptan prescribed to you. My migraine medication. My car was stolen last week. I filed a report. That's a problem. My mind spun. My stolen car, my private prescription. Something only someone close to me would know about. Miss Sterling, Croft's voice cut through the fog. Your alibi for last night? I was in a video meeting with Tokyo from 10 to 11 p.m. It was recorded. It's on a server. Then I went to sleep. Can anyone confirm you were at home after 11? No, that leaves a window. Croft jotted that down. The accident was at 10:38. If your meeting started at 10, you were on camera. That helps. We can prove that. I was on camera for the full hour, I repeated. We will need that footage immediately. And we need a theory for how your car and your medicine got there. I started to speak but stopped. How? I had no idea. I need my laptop, I said again. All my work, my entire schedule, is on it. Croft nodded slowly. Your father wants you at the penthouse. A family meeting. The phrase so ordinary sounded like a threat. Why does my father know I need my laptop? I don't understand. Did he instruct you to say that? Croft's face remained a perfect mask. Your father is deeply concerned. He wants to ensure a coordinated defense. I'll be there tonight. I have to go to my loft first. I need to understand what is going on. Croft's jaw set. Your father was explicit. He expects you on the Gold Coast now. The word expects was a command. I stood. Thank you for your help. I will be in contact. Miss Sterling, I must advise against I will call you. I walked out before he finished. The property clerk handed me a large envelope with my phone, wallet, and keys. I had to ask for a charger and wait for the phone to boot up. The screen lit up with a storm of notifications, 36 missed calls, texts from friends, colleagues, and numbers I didn't know. I scrolled. Arthur, do not speak. Come to the penthouse. Sent at 8:20 a.m., less than an hour after my arrest. Catherine? Chloe is beside herself with worry. Come home. Sent at 8:31 a.m. I focused on that message. Chloe is beside herself. My younger sister, the family jewel who lived in my parents' gilded cage. Why would she be worried? She couldn't possibly know. I hadn't told a soul, unless someone had told her. I kept scrolling. More messages from my father, a text from my lead project manager asking if I was alright. How did everyone know so fast? I signed the release forms in a daze and walked through the heavy doors into the overcast Chicago morning. The September air was damp and cool. The courthouse plaza was full of people going about their lives, their problems mundane and normal. I stood there, out of jail but not free, and scrolled to my contacts list, my thumb hovering over one name. I had to call my husband Liam, tell him the doctor's visit went well, that our baby was fine, just a little scare. But first I needed our insurance policy from his study. I opened the door, a space I rarely entered, and began to search. What if something had happened on his business trip? What if I needed that information now? The file cabinet was locked. My hand brushed against a leather-bound sketchbook I'd never seen before. Inside were drawings, not of the hotel project, but of a seaside cottage. Marcus and Amelia lived just down the coast. I recognized the coastline from their parties. Someone in my husband's family knew about this secret place, this other life he was building, a life without me. A cold dread began to form in my stomach. This wasn't just a secret, it was a betrayal. Our Boston brownstone suddenly felt different. The home that had been my nest, with its soft colors and morning light filtering through the bay windows overlooking the public garden, now felt like someone else's stage. Not because a thing was out of place, but because my entire world was. Just 2 hours ago, I was humming, rubbing my swollen belly, waiting for my husband's call. The tea kettle was still warm. My mug sat on the counter, half full. His laptop was on his desk, its screen dark, sleeping peacefully. I locked the study door from the inside and leaned against it, my breath catching in my throat. Think, Ilara. I had maybe 48 hours before Liam was due back from his conference. 48 hours to figure this out. 48 hours to find out who he was building this new life for. I sat at his desk and opened his laptop. It lit up. Password already entered. Browser tabs were still open from yesterday. His work emails, a blueprint for the hotel lobby, a half-finished invoice for a supplier. Everything looked professional, ordinary, except it wasn't. I opened a drawer looking for the key to the file cabinet. Under a stack of papers, I found a small velvet jewelry box from a shop on Newberry Street. It was empty. I felt inside and pulled out a folded receipt. A custom necklace purchased yesterday, for a delicate gold chain with a single diamond-studded letter, the letter C. My heart stopped. A perfect, devastating clue. The accountant hadn't seen this purchase. They'd only seen a receipt for a client gift, a very expensive client gift. I closed my eyes and pictured the necklace. It wasn't my style at all. I picked up the receipt again. To C for our new beginning. Not a client, a promise. I stared at the elegant script. When was the last time Liam had bought me jewelry? I sat heavily in his leather chair thinking. He wasn't a gift giver. He paid for everything, our life, our home, but romantic gestures were not his style. My expensive ring felt cold on my finger. The last time we'd gone out was 3 weeks ago. No, a month. The firm's summer gala. I stood up, heart racing. Late July at the Museum of Fine Arts. I'd been exhausted, 8 weeks pregnant and nauseous. A new intern, Chloe, I remembered her now, young, brilliant, wearing a red dress that was a little too bold for an intern. She'd followed Liam around all night, hanging on his every word. I hadn't thought twice about it. Why would I? He was her boss. She was just a kid. Oh my god. I grabbed my phone and found the pictures from that night. There, July 21st, 2024. A photo of me and Liam by the entrance. He was wearing his best tuxedo, a tight smile on his face. I was in a loose silk dress, trying to hide my tiny bump. The timestamp was 9:47 p.m. I zoomed in on the background. Chloe was behind us, watching. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just watching, she was staring at him. We'd left early that night because I felt sick. He had insisted on driving me home himself. He had access to his car, to his phone, to a whole other life after I went to bed. Absolutely. A little starstruck, maybe, but she wasn't the type to break up a marriage. She wouldn't take my husband. She wouldn't destroy my family, would she? I thought about the text his mother sent this morning. Liam is working so hard. He needs a break. Working hard. Why? I opened my messages. No text from him all day. We hadn't really talked since he left 2 days ago. A quick call to say he'd landed safely. He'd seemed distant, distracted. I'd blamed it on work. That was normal. Liam and I weren't emotional. We hadn't been in years. But building a secret house, buying diamond necklaces, that wasn't just distant, that was a divorce. I looked at the sketchbook again, at the date on the first page. September 17th, 2024, 3:14 a.m. He'd drawn this in the middle of the night. He'd known exactly how to hide this from me. He'd known I wouldn't look. He'd known I'd be sleeping, and he'd been planning his escape anyway. I stood up, shoving the receipt in my pocket. I wasn't going to wait until he came home. I was driving to his brother's house right now, and I was going to find out what his family had been hiding. The drive to Brookline felt like crossing into a foreign country. I took the long way through the fens, then west on Beacon Street. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. It was the kind of perfect New England evening that made people feel safe and content. I just felt sick. By the time I reached his brother's gate, my hands were shaking. I typed in the code, his nephew's birthday, and the iron gate swung inward. 1847 Walnut Street sat on a hill, overlooking a private golf course. 3 stories, gray stone, a slate roof with copper gutters. The kind of house that whispered about generations of wealth, even though Julian had built it 5 years ago with Liam's money. Every window glowed. I parked my Range Rover behind his brother's Porsche and stared at the heavy oak door. Think, Ilara. I took a breath and got out. The door swung open before I reached it. Julian stood there, Liam's older brother, a look of veiled surprise on his face. 61 years old, but fit in a cashmere sweater. Even at 6 in the evening, he looked like he owned the world. Right on time, he said, "We should talk." I walked past him without a word. The foyer was just as I remembered. Polished herringbone floors, a sweeping staircase, a massive contemporary painting on the far wall. The air smelled of beeswax and old money. Fiona appeared from the living room, a glass of wine in her hand. She was thinner than I recalled, her dark hair pulled back in a chic knot, her silk blouse immaculate. She moved across the room, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Ilara, darling, what a surprise. Are you all right?" I pulled my arm back before she could touch it. "Where is he?" Julian's face hardened. "His associate called me." "Now, have a seat. We need a plan." He gestured toward the living room, already turning away. Fiona hesitated, then followed him. I stood my ground, looking around. The house felt cold. It always did. No matter how many family dinners I'd endured here, it never felt welcoming. It was Julian's house, Julian's power, Liam's money. I walked into the living room. Julian stood by the fireplace, the one no one ever used, swirling a glass of bourbon. Fiona sat on a pristine white sofa, her hands clenched in her lap. They both stared at me as if I were a complication they hadn't anticipated. I sat opposite them, my posture rigid. Fiona said, "The project is stressful," Julian began. "The Coastal Commission, a permit issue. We can handle it." "A permit issue," I said. "What issue?" Fiona's hands tightened. "Someone filed a complaint." An anonymous neighbor. They said they saw Liam on the property with a young woman. Who complained? Julian's voice was sharp. Anonymous. That's what the word means. I looked at him. He was a terrible liar. I could see it in the way his jaw twitched, in the way Fiona stared into her wine glass. They knew who she was. Before I could speak, I heard tires on the gravel driveway. Elara. Chloe appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide, her face pale. She was in an oversized silk blouse and leggings, her dark hair knotted loosely. Her face was puffy, streaked with tears. She moved to embrace me. I held my ground. Amelia paused, her pained smile fading. Chloe, thank God. Are you all right? Her voice was a fragile whisper. I can't believe this is real. Isabella Rossi was the interior designer for our new penthouse. This is a nightmare. I became very still. Your event planner knows our designer. Amelia blinked. Well, Boston's a small town for our circle. You know how it is. I studied her. The tears seemed genuine. Her eyes were bloodshot, but something felt rehearsed. Her fingers trembled, but her eyes were sharp, watchful. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a performance. Amelia, I began, my voice even. Where were you last night at 10:21? The living room fell silent. Richard put his scotch down with a thud. What in God's name is that supposed to mean? I kept my gaze fixed on Amelia. It's a simple question. Where were you? Amelia's lips parted, but no sound came out. I was right here with Mom and Dad. We had dinner. I looked at my mother, Eleanor. Is that correct? Yes, she said, a little too fast. Of course, we were all here together. What was for dinner? Eleanor faltered. I had the chef prepare salmon. Poached salmon, what time? 7, Richard interjected. We ate at 7. Amelia was here the entire evening. What are you insinuating, Chloe? I rose to my feet. Amelia recoiled slightly. I'm not insinuating, I said. I'm asking why someone used my spare key fob to take my car last night, why someone spoofed my phone's location to this house, and why an anonymous tip was called in to ensure I'd be the primary suspect. That's preposterous, Richard began. Is it? I focused on Amelia. Truly? I looked at her right hand. A silk scarf was loosely tied around her knuckles. What happened to your hand? I asked. Amelia glanced down, then tucked her hand behind her back. Nothing. I burned it on a curling iron. When? Yesterday, before or after 10:21. Chloe, that's enough. Richard stood, his voice a low growl. You are distraught. You're pregnant and you're scared, but you will not stand in my home and interrogate your sister. I need to use the powder room. No one spoke. The one upstairs, I clarified. Richard's jaw tightened, but he gave a sharp nod. I left the room, went up the grand staircase, and took a right at the landing. But I bypassed the bathroom. I went straight to Amelia's room, and the scene inside was about to unravel everything. Amelia's bedroom was an immaculate space of beige and cream, a curated showroom of quiet luxury she couldn't afford on her own. I shut the door and stood, listening intently. I could hear Richard's angry, muffled tones from downstairs, my mother's attempts to soothe him, the clinking of a bottle against a glass. Perfect. They assumed I was having a moment. I surveyed the room, a canopy bed with a mountain of decorative pillows, a vanity littered with high-end cosmetics and perfumes. The walk-in closet door was ajar, revealing bags from Chanel and Dior on display. And on her antique writing desk, a new laptop, a gift from my husband, was open. The screen was dark, but a tiny white light pulsed. It was asleep. I crossed to it and lightly tapped the spacebar. The display flickered to life. No security login. The desktop background was a professional photo of Amelia with some man I'd never seen, both looking deceptively happy. I scanned the applications on the bottom of the screen. A web browser, photos, social media, a calendar, and 9 active browser tabs. I looked closer. The first few were what I expected. A florist in the Berkshires, a Pinterest board named Dream Wedding, a shopping cart at a bridal boutique, all part of the fantasy. Just as I was about to close it, I saw the very last tab. The label was nondescript. Notes? My fingers hesitated over the mouse. I clicked. The screen showed a password prompt. I tried her birthday. Denied. I tried our childhood pet's name. Winston 1. Access granted. The file that opened was a list of dated entries. I scrolled down and my breath hitched. August 3rd, 2024, 11:04 p.m. How to make an anonymous police tip in Boston. August 5th, 2024, 1:22 a.m. Do police question family alibis? August 10th, 2024, 3:16 a.m. Boston PD non-emergency line. August 12th, 2024, 10:05 p.m. How long for airbag bruises on hands to heal? Can police recover deleted location data? September 2nd, 2024, 9:30 p.m. Penalties for leaving an accident scene in Massachusetts? I stared, my heart pounding against my ribs. Amelia had been planning this. She'd researched how to report the crime, how to build a false alibi, and how to frame me. And on the night of the incident, she put her plan into motion. My hands trembled as I took out my phone, snapping several pictures of the screen, capturing the search queries and their timestamps. I closed the file, put the laptop back to sleep, and stepped away, my mind racing. I needed more. A search history could be explained away. A lawyer could call it research for a novel, morbid curiosity. I needed something undeniable. I turned back to the desk and opened a drawer. Stationery, pens, receipts. The second drawer held jewelry. In the third drawer, beneath a stack of old invitations, I found it. Tucked in the back was a small leather-bound journal. I lifted it out. The cover was simple, embossed with her initials. A gift from our parents? I opened it to the first bookmarked page, dated June 14th, 2024. Day 1 slipped Chloe's spare key fob from her purse at the gala. She was too busy talking about her new life with Liam to notice. Tucked it away for the right opportunity, I flipped ahead. Day 20 researched BPD protocol. An anonymous tip plus physical ID at the scene means an immediate arrest. Day 35 selected the mark. Isabella Rossi, Liam's little project. Perfect. Hitting someone tied to my brother-in-law will guarantee a full-blown investigation. Chloe won't stand a chance. Day 50, dry run, drove past her studio on Newberry Street at 10:15 p.m. The alley is unlit, no security cameras. She walks home that way every night. Day 62, the baby shower is next month. Chloe isn't inviting me to help plan. Good. The more she pushes me away, the easier this becomes. Day 80, just one more week. Everything is in place. The key fob, the car, the alibi. Chloe's perfect, glittering life is about to shatter. And for once, I'll be the daughter they're proud of. I couldn't get enough air. The words swam before my eyes. Amelia didn't just use my car. She'd been plotting this for months. She stalked Isabella. She rehearsed her route. She had meticulously planned my destruction as if it were one of her events, as if I were just an obstacle to be removed. I heard footsteps approaching. I slid the journal back into the drawer, closed it quietly, and turned as the door swung open. Amelia stood there, her expression hardening. Chloe, what are you doing in here? I molded my face into a mask of exhaustion and grief. Sorry, I just felt a little faint. This whole day. Amelia's eyes swept the room. The desk, the closet, the vanity. Why didn't you use the guest room? It was just closer, I lied. I needed to sit down. Her gaze settled on the laptop for a moment too long. Then she looked at me. You should go home, she said, her voice soft again. You need to rest. It's been too much. I nodded. You're right. I started for the door, but she reached out, her fingers closing around my arm. You believe me, don't you? Her voice trembled as fresh tears welled. That I was here with Mom and Dad all night. You have to believe me. I glanced down at her hand, at the silk scarf, covering knuckles I now knew were bruised from an airbag. I looked up and met her pleading gaze. Of course I believe you, I said. You're my sister. Her face flooded with relief as she released my arm. I walked out, down the stairs, and past my parents, who were now sitting in stony silence. I didn't look at them. I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove away, not toward home. I pulled over a few blocks from the house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. Three facts were now undeniable. One, Amelia had methodically researched how to frame me for weeks. Two, she had an injury consistent with being in a car crash. And three, my parents were lying to protect her. But I hadn't yet grasped the most terrifying part. I had no idea just how deep her jealousy ran. I was awake all night. By 5 a.m., I was in my study, my three monitors casting a cool glow in the pre dawn darkness, pulling apart every digital clue I had. The photos from Amelia's laptop were on the left screen. Search terms, dates, timestamps. In the middle, a secure terminal was open, awaiting my commands. On the right, a spreadsheet was taking shape. A timeline of my own sister's betrayal. June 4th, key fob stolen. June 14th, the journal begins. August 3rd through 16th. Searches on how to commit the perfect crime. October 5th, 9:14 p.m. the collision. October 6th, 6:47 a.m. my arrest. But the narrative felt incomplete, riddled with holes. I needed more than a search history and a scribbled notebook. I needed concrete evidence for court, the kind that couldn't be dismantled by the high-powered attorney Richard would undoubtedly hire. I slumped in my chair, the coffee now cold, and just stared at the ceiling. Then it hit me. 5 years ago, my father had me create a shared family cloud drive. He wanted a central place for photos, documents, shared software licenses. I spent a whole Saturday setting it up, linking Richard's account, my mother Eleanor's, Olivia's, and mine. And since I organized it, I still held the master admin key, giving me access to all linked devices. I shot upright, pulled up a new browser tab, and typed in the cloud service address, logging in with the admin credentials. The control panel appeared. 4 profiles: Richard Vance, Eleanor Vance, Olivia Vance, Amelia Vance. I clicked on Olivia. A list of her registered devices popped up: a Surface laptop, an iPhone 15, an iPad, all active, all syncing to the drive. A slow smile spread across my face. Let's see what secrets you have, little sister. I found the laptop's continuous backup file from 2 days prior, October 5th, the night of the crash. The download began 6 gigabytes. It was going to take a moment. I refilled my coffee mug and sat back down, watching the progress bar inch along. 80%, 90%, complete. I opened the archive using a file recovery program I used at the firm to pull data from corrupted project files. The program populated with everything: messages, photos, application data, call records, location pings. I went straight for the messages. The software highlighted several recovered chat logs. I opened the first one: a conversation between Olivia and an anonymous contact. The area code was from Chicago. I scrolled back to the start. August 15th, 2024, 2 months earlier. I have what you need. $750. Monero only. Olivia had typed back, "How do I know it's legit?" The contact replied, "It's a perfect digital copy. I use the same source myself. Never been flagged." My eyes locked on the screen: a fake driver's license. She had bought a fake ID. I read on. August 28th, 2024. Olivia, will it pass at bars? Anonymous contact. Anywhere, but don't get reckless. One traffic stop and it's done. My fingers dug into the armrests. A traffic stop. She was planning to drive, to crash, to plant my ID as the perfect cover, and she'd been careful enough to secure a backup identity for herself. I took a screenshot, dropping it into a new folder labeled Evidence. Next, I checked the financial apps. Olivia's Cash App was tied to the family account, giving me access to her payment history. I scrolled to mid-August, August 15th. A payment to an account named Inkwell Designs for $750. The note read, "Final payment for branding package." I ran a search on the username. It led nowhere, a ghost account. But a quick check on a private form I used for work revealed the account was a known front for a document forger. This wasn't some back alley operation. It was a professional setup, and Olivia had paid him, masking the transaction with a fake memo to make it seem like a business expense. I pushed further, opening Olivia's crypto exchange account. She'd connected it to the family account years before to dabble in investments. I found the transaction log. August 15th, 2024, she bought $750 worth of Monero and immediately sent it to an external wallet. The wallet was anonymous, but the timing was perfect. She acquired the crypto the very same day she paid the forger. She knew exactly what she was doing. I saved the crypto records to the evidence folder. Then I moved on, pulling up her credit card statements. It was mostly what I expected: art supplies, boutique clothing, brunches at trendy cafes, yoga classes, but a single transaction caught my eye. September 10th, 2024, $300 to Boston Discreet Inquiries. I googled the company, a private investigation firm in the Back Bay. Pricey, confidential, specializing in lifestyle analysis and surveillance. My heart started hammering. She had hired a private investigator for what? To watch me, to follow Sarah Miller, to map my entire routine so she would know precisely when I'd be home with a solid alibi? I opened the firm's website in a new tab. Their services listed subject tracking, pattern of life analysis, and digital footprint mapping. It was the complete toolkit for someone who wanted to ruin a life and make it look like an accident. I leaned back, my breathing shallow. This was not a drunken mistake. This was not a desperate cover up. Olivia had spent months planning this. She'd acquired a fake identity. She'd researched how to perfectly frame me. She'd hired a professional to stalk me. She'd used cryptocurrency to hide her payments. She had practiced the route. She had selected the victim. And she documented it, all in a hidden file, like it was a damn architectural blueprint. My phone vibrated. A text from Richard. "We need to talk. Call me." I swiped it away. I couldn't speak to him. Not now. Not until I had everything. I returned to the cloud drive backup, which was still open. I clicked through the last of the files, photos, notes, calendars, and then I found it. A folder on Olivia's laptop labeled Project Nightingale. Last modified, October 5th, 2024, 11:32 p.m., the night of the crash. My hand shook as it hovered over the mouse. Whatever was in that folder would prove my deepest fear, that Olivia hadn't just framed me. She had documented it. Every thought, every step, every choice she made to destroy my life. I clicked the folder and began to read. But wait, before I detail the contents of that project file, the one where Olivia laid out her 90-day plan to ruin me, I need you to think. Was she acting alone? Did my parents suspect something? Or is this story about to get even darker? Because what I found wasn't just evidence, it was a methodical plan. Phase 1, resentment. Phase 2, target acquisition. Phase 3, final execution. She wrote it like a project proposal, cold and methodical, a brief note. This story contains fictionalized elements for dramatic effect, and any likeness to real individuals or events is purely coincidental. If stories of intense family betrayal are difficult for you, now is the time to find something lighter. But if you are prepared to witness the moment I discovered my own sister had spent 3 months orchestrating my downfall, stay with me. The project file doesn't lie, and its contents will demolish everything you think you know about family. I brewed another pot of coffee. I was definitely going to need it. The file contained 90 days of entries. I settled back at my desk, the document open on my main monitor, and began to scroll. The first entry was from July 18th, 2024, 3 months prior, a full season before the crash. I inhaled sharply and started to read. Day 1, dinner tonight. Dad would not shut up about Mia's firm winning the Seaport Tower contract. Lead architect at 33, Mia. I'm so tired of hearing her name. I design brand identities for startups, and my father acts like it's a hobby. I am finished being the runner-up. I stared at the words. This was all rooted in jealousy. My career, my accomplishments, my success. That was all it took for her to decide to burn my life to the ground. I recall that dinner in July. Richard had made me come to celebrate. Olivia had been all smiles, giving me a hug and saying how proud she was, all while seething with hatred. I continued reading. Day 15. I know how I'm going to do it. Mia thinks she's so brilliant building her perfect little world. She will never see this coming. First, I need to get her driver's license. Then, I need the ideal victim. Someone whose story will enrage the Boston PD so much they won't waste time looking too closely at alibis. My hands began to tremble. An ideal victim. She had picked Sarah on purpose. This wasn't a random act, it was strategic. She had spent 2 weeks plotting how to ruin me, and she knew the key was picking a victim who would make the police too emotional to think clearly. I scrolled further. Day 28. Mia has yoga in the seaport every Wednesday morning. She's so predictable. I'll run into her tomorrow, snag the license when she's in the changing room. I shut my eyes. August 12th. She had been there. She'd sent me a text. In your neighborhood for a client meeting. Smoothie after your class? I had been so thrilled to see her. We met, we talked, and I left my tote in my locker while I showered. When I got back, Olivia was gone, having texted that her client rescheduled, and she had already lifted my ID. I kept scrolling, a knot tightening in my stomach. Day 35. Got it. Mia's license is mine. She hasn't even realized it's missing. So trusting. So stupid. Now I just need to lock in the target. So stupid. That's what she'd written about me, her sister. The person who had always defended her, supported her, and covered for her for 30 years. I was stupid for trusting her. I made myself read on. Day 40. Watched Mia at her North End cafe today. She looked so happy, sketching in her little book. That feeling won't last long. I froze. August 20th. Cafe Vittoria. I had felt like someone was watching me, but when I glanced around, the street was just full of tourists. But it hadn't been a tourist. It had been Olivia, watching me, already picturing my life in ruins. Day 47. Found her. Sarah Miller, wife of BPD detective Mark Miller. She's an elementary school teacher. A perfect innocent victim. She drives home from the school every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m., right through Beacon Hill. And here's the masterstroke. When a cop's wife gets hit, the whole department loses its mind. They will find the ID left at the scene and make the arrest first, ask questions later. Mia won't have a chance to prove her innocence. I felt acid rise in my throat. She had picked a detective's wife, coldly and strategically, because she knew it would guarantee a swift arrest, knowing the police would be too protective, too enraged to properly check my alibi. She had turned the law into her personal weapon. The logs were chillingly systematic. Log 52. Hired a Back Bay PI for $200 to track Sophia Rossi's every move. A worthwhile investment. The PI had been hired to tail Sophia. This was a calculated operation, not a fit of rage. Log 60. The engagement party. Clara isn't attending. Perfect. Her distance from us simplifies her ruin. I remembered that day. I'd claimed a gallery event was the reason. I thought I was setting a boundary, not helping her build my prison. Log 68. Procured a forged license from a contact in Providence, 500 in Monero. It's high quality. If I get stopped, I use it. Clara's ID remains pristine for the main event. She had planned for every possibility. This was a cold professional hit. Log 75. Dry run completed. Took father's Mercedes through the intersection at 9:15, intoxicated. No patrols, no visible cameras. The timing is exact. Sophia's route is predictable. My world tilted, a practice run. She had intentionally driven drunk, checking the path, timing her attack, ensuring she wouldn't be seen. It was premeditated, not a panicked reaction. A rehearsal. On September 2nd, I was at my loft. 12 miles away, Eleanor practiced my downfall. I scrolled further. Log 82, informed Marian. She resisted, but Arthur persuaded her. His words, Clara was always defiant. She thinks she's above this family. This will bring her down to earth. Marian consented to place the anonymous call. A burner phone, a false description of a woman resembling me. Flawless, my own mother. Something inside me shattered. She had actually agreed. Marian had wept, but Arthur's influence won. They both felt I had it coming. My defiance was refusing his control over my gallery, moving out at 25, rejecting his wealth. For that, he wanted me jailed to learn humility. I blinked through tears, reading the last entries. Log 89, September 16th. All systems are go. I'll strike Sophia's vehicle at 9:17. Clara will be at her charity auction. A useless alibi. Her driver's license will be on the seat. Marian makes the anonymous tip. By dawn, Clara will be arrested. Her gallery, her name, her life, gone. She will understand true loss. Then father will finally be proud of me. Farewell, dear sister. The air left my lungs. It was total annihilation she wanted. Not just a conviction, but the complete ruin of my life, my work, my soul, documented like a grocery list. It was a eulogy. I was numb. 3 months. 3 months she had plotted my imprisonment. A new entry appeared, dated today, a few hours old, log 90. Clara made bail. She's likely in her loft, confused and piecing things together. Let her try. Suspicion is nothing without evidence. The plea offer will soon seem like her only escape. My parents have the attorney managed. It's all contained. The timestamp was 6:47 a.m., the moment I found the tablet. Eleanor didn't know I had her private logs. She didn't know I was on the old family tablet she'd left behind, or that I had images of her search history, her crypto transfers, her chats with the forger. She believed she was untouchable, that she had already won, and her arrogance would be her undoing. I shut the device, sitting in the quiet loft. My tea was cold, sunlight filled the room, but I felt nothing. The proof was all there. A comprehensive log of a 3-month conspiracy to frame me for a violent felony. Digital footprints, financial trails, a complete confession. Yet I was paralyzed. I couldn't simply present this to the police. Eleanor would say I faked it. Arthur would unleash his legal team. Marian would perjure herself. Finding the logs on a shared tablet was a gray area. Their defense would scream the evidence was illegally obtained. I needed a strategy, not just data. I dumped the cold tea and looked over the Boston cityscape. Eleanor was out there, living her life, planning her future, feigning concern for me, oblivious to my discovery, unaware that I'd spent the morning connecting all the dots. She saw me as the naive, trusting older sister, completely lost. She was wrong. I needed an ally, someone outside my family's circle of influence. I held my phone, then found the number for the Boston Police headquarters. My thumb paused over the screen. This was irreversible. It meant declaring war on my own family. Eleanor would know I was onto her. Then I pictured Sophia Rossi in the hospital and her young daughter. 3 months of my sister's cold, calculating hatred. I made the call. It rang twice. Boston Police? How may I direct your call? I need a lead detective on my case, I stated. My name is Clara Hayes. I was charged 2 days ago, case number 47921. A moment passed. That would be Detective Miles. Homicide Division, please hold. Music started. My pulse raced. A weary, gravelly voice answered. Miles? Detective, my name is Clara Hayes. I'm the suspect in the Sophia Rossi case. I know who you are, Miss Hayes. This is not standard procedure. Your counsel should be making this call. I have proof I was set up, I interrupted. By my sister. I need 1 hour. A pause. Your lawyer warned me you might say that. It sounds desperate. I have her private logs, I said. A 3-month plan. It details why she chose the assistant DA's wife specifically. The silence on the line was heavy. His next words were clipped. Headquarters, 2 p.m. alone. I was there at 1:55 p.m. with my tablet and a drive containing encrypted copies of everything. Miles met me inside. A stocky man in his 40s with tired, sharp eyes that missed nothing. His sleeves were rolled up on a plain white shirt, his badge on his belt. He didn't shake my hand. This way. We navigated a labyrinth of corridors to a stark, windowless interview room. You have 30 minutes, he said, pointing to a chair. Impress me. I powered on the tablet and opened the file. These are my sister Eleanor's private logs. I found them on an old family tablet she forgot about. I angled the screen to him. This is from July 30th, 2024. Miles leaned in. The entry read, "Found the target. A D.A. Rossi's wife, Sophia, a nurse, the perfect sympathetic victim. Her route is the same twice a week, 9 p.m. sharp. The beauty of this is you hit a prosecutor's wife, the entire force mobilizes. They'll make an arrest based on the planted ID and sort the details later. Clara won't stand a chance." His expression hardened. More! I navigated to the entry from September 16th, the night before it happened. Everything is in place. I will strike Sophia's car at 9:17. Clara has her charity event, an alibi that will collapse under pressure. I'll plant her license in the car. Marian will make the tip. By sunrise, Clara is behind bars. Miles read it again, then leaned back. This is premeditation, clear as day, but prove it's not your work. I was ready for that. Look at the metadata. Each entry has a timestamp. Cross-reference Eleanor's device activity. She last opened this file the day before the incident. The device logs confirm it. I opened another screen. There's more. A Monero transfer to a forger in Providence. The texts arranging the purchase. I showed him the tablet again. His jaw tightened as he scanned the crypto records and the recovered messages. At last he met my eyes. I also have a verifiable alibi. They arrested me before checking. I was in a live video conference with our Tokyo partners from 9 to 10 p.m., the night of the fire. The entire session is recorded on a secure server. I can give you access. Morales' gaze sharpened. Why didn't your attorney bring this up? My husband's corporate lawyer isn't trying to clear me, I said. He's protecting my husband's company. Morales stood, walking to the window. He was quiet for a moment, then faced me. If you're right, this is more than arson. This is conspiracy, corporate espionage, and attempted murder. Is your husband involved? He was with my sister, Chloe. I told him they were at their condo in Belltown, 5 miles from the data center. Can you prove that? Check the burner phone I gave you. You'll see. Morales studied me, then picked up his phone. Chen, meet me in the interview room B. 2 minutes later, the door opened. Officer Kenji Chen walked in. He was younger than Morales, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes and a smart watch on his wrist. He looked at me, his face a mask of professional neutrality. Officer Chen, I said softly. I'm so sorry about the guard, but I didn't do this, and I have proof. Morales pointed to the laptop. Look at this. Chen examined the screen. I saw his expression shift from confusion to disbelief, then to controlled anger. He scanned it again. He looked at Morales. Is this legit? The metadata is clean, Morales said. Server logs back it up. We also have financial records, texts, and an alibi we never ran. Chen turned to me, his voice tight. Your sister did this. She targeted that facility specifically. Yes, I said, because she knew it would look like corporate sabotage. She knew everyone would be too focused on my husband's company to question my alibi. Chen's jaw clenched. He looked at Morales. I should be off this, but you need to pull her in right now. Morales nodded. I agree, but we handled this cleanly. He looked at me. Miss Vance, if I move forward, I will investigate your entire family. Your sister could be charged with attempted murder. Your husband with conspiracy. Can you handle that? I thought of Chloe's texts. He'll be mine soon. I thought about the security guard on a ventilator, about my unborn child, about months of lies. I met Morales' gaze. I can, but I need something first. Morales waited. I need to be the one who questions Chloe on the record. That evening, Morales made the call. I was in the same room watching as he put his phone on speaker and dialed my sister's number. My hands were still, but my heart was hammering. This is the plan, Morales had said 20 minutes before. We're bringing her in as a witness, not a suspect. She won't lawyer up. You'll be present as the victim who needs her help. She'll assume she's there to corroborate her story. And we'll be recording? I'd confirmed. Every word. Two-way mirror, full audio and video. If she talks, we have her, Morales had leaned in. But Ilara, you cannot force a confession, no intimidation, no deals. Present the facts and let her talk herself into a corner. Can you manage that? I'd met his stare. I have spent my entire life saving Chloe from herself. Tomorrow I'm done. Now, as the line rang, Morales' voice became smooth and official. Miss Vance, this is Detective Morales with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling about the investigation into the fire at the Omnicorp data center. Chloe's voice was wary when it came through the speaker. Yes, what about it? We're told you are Lara Vance's sister. We'd like you to come in tomorrow to provide a witness statement to help us confirm Ilara's schedule. There was a brief silence, then Chloe's voice warmed, laced with fake sympathy. Of course, I'll do anything to help. Ilara would never do this. 9 a.m. tomorrow, downtown precinct. You won't need an attorney, it's just a routine statement. I'll be there, Chloe promised. The call disconnected. Morales looked at me. She sounded relieved. She thinks she's coming to deliver the final nail in my coffin, I said. Good. Let her think that right up until the end. Morales spent the next hour coaching me on interrogation tactics. We sat across from each other, him with a legal pad, me with the burner phone's contents on my laptop. Start slow, he advised. Build a false sense of security, then introduce the evidence slowly. Don't show your whole hand at once. Let her lie. What if she denies everything? She will. Let her. Each lie is a brick in her own prison wall. He tapped his pen. Watch for her tells. When Chloe plays with her hair, she's deflecting. When she looks down and to the left, she's accessing memory, not creating a lie. When she crosses her arms, she's feeling defensive. And if she tries to leave, she's not under arrest, she can walk, but a narcissist can't stand losing control of the story. She'll stay to fight. I absorbed every detail. Morales got up. Go home. Try to sleep. Tomorrow will be draining. I didn't go home. I drove to a cafe near the ferry terminal, nursing a tea I never drank, watching the lights on the water. All I could see were normal people, living their uncomplicated lives. I remembered Chloe at 17, wrecking our father's convertible and begging me to take the blame. I'd done it, covering for her. Ilara, you'll always have my back, right? She'd cried. Always, I had promised. I thought of Chloe in college, maxing out my credit cards on a trip to Europe. I paid the $30,000 bill without telling our parents, and she never even thanked me. I thought of the day I found her texts with my husband, Julian. She had never apologized for that either, because that's what big sisters do. They absorb the pain, they forgive, they sacrifice. And in return, Chloe had plotted for months to ruin my life and take my husband. When I finally got home, it was almost 1 a.m. I didn't even try to sleep. I just sat there, reading the messages on the burner phone one last time. He'll be mine soon. She'll be gone by Friday. Just a little fire. I practiced my opening question in the bathroom mirror, my voice devoid of all emotion. Chloe, where's your other phone? I repeated it until 3 a.m. At 5 a.m., I was just staring at the darkness, waiting for sunrise. At 6 a.m., my phone lit up. It was a text from Chloe. The police called. They want me to give a statement for you. I'm so scared. What do I tell them? I stared at the message. She was asking me for advice on how to frame me. I typed my reply. Just tell them the truth, Chloe. That's all anyone can do. I sent it. The 3 dots pulsed. She was typing, deleting, retyping. Finally, a response. Okay, I love you. I put the phone down, my heart like a stone in my chest. In 3 hours, Chloe would walk into that police station thinking she was the hero of her own story. She had no idea she was walking into mine. I got to the station at 8:30 a.m. Morales met me outside the interview room. It was different from the last one, smaller, with a heavy table bolted to the floor. A camera was tucked in the top corner. A large two-way mirror covered one wall. Chen is behind the glass, Morales said. He wants to see this. I just nodded. We are recording audio and video. When she arrives, an officer will bring her in. You'll be waiting. I'll explain you're the complainant, trying to clear your name, and that you requested to speak with her. Then I'm out. If she asks why you're here, tell her you wanted to thank her for helping you. Keep it calm. I glanced at the mirror. I couldn't see him, but I felt Chen's presence on the other side, waiting for justice for the man his wife had almost killed. What if she refuses to talk? I asked. Morales' face was unreadable. Then we build the case with warrants and forensics. But if she does confess, he let the sentence hang in the air. We've got her, I said. At 8:55 a.m., Morales' radio chirped. Witness has arrived. He gave me a final look. Ready? I thought about the months of betrayal. I thought about the guard in the hospital. I thought about Chloe's text. Love you. I sat in the chair facing the door. I'm ready. The room was cold. I folded my hands on the cool metal table and waited. At 9 a.m., on the dot, the door opened. A uniformed officer escorted Chloe inside. She wore a silk blouse and tailored trousers. Her makeup was perfect. She looked poised, confident, and concerned. Then her eyes landed on me. Her smile faltered. Ilara, I thought I was here to give a statement to the police. I kept my voice level. Sit down, Chloe. She paused, her gaze flicking to the officer, who simply gestured to the empty chair before leaving and shutting the door. Chloe sat down cautiously, her eyes scanning the room, lingering on the two-way mirror. Why are you in here? Shouldn't you have a lawyer? This has nothing to do with me, I said. This is about you. Olivia managed a brittle smile. What that investigator said. He just wants his fee, Chloe, and I'm going to help you see that. Her gaze darted to the gallery entrance. I don't understand. You will? I opened the portfolio on the table and slid a bank statement across the polished surface. Olivia, did you purchase prenatal vitamins online last Tuesday? She just stared at the page. The blood drained from her face. That's a forgery. How did you even answer the question? Her lips parted, then pressed thin. I was researching for an art piece. It's conceptual. I slid another receipt over, and the untraceable burner phone was that conceptual too. Olivia's hands gripped the table's edge. You've been spying on me. That's illegal. I hired a private investigator to follow my husband. Every communication he made is legally documented. Olivia's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. I leaned in. Olivia, did you take the spare key fob from my purse? Silence. No? Why would I do that? Last Sunday, at Mom's brunch, in her Upper East Side apartment. You were there. I was just visiting our mother. You were there because you knew Marcus and I would be. You've memorized our schedule. I slid a photo across the table, a still from my building's lobby, showing her entering 15 minutes after we got home. My purse was on the counter for 10 minutes while I took a call. When I came back, the fob was gone. Olivia looked at the image. That proves nothing. Where is that key fob now, Olivia? Her hand drifted toward her handbag. Don't, I said softly. I know you don't have it, because my investigator watched you give it to my husband, Marcus, at the cafe downtown. Olivia's hand froze. She clutched her bag to her chest, her fingers trembling. For the first time, she looked cornered. This is crazy. You're trying to set me up, Chloe. You're my sister. Are you? I interrupted, my voice low but sharp. Because sisters don't spend 3 months plotting to take away their niece or nephew. Olivia became utterly still. What are you talking about? I reached into the portfolio again. This time I pulled out the text transcripts. 90 days of them, printed, dated, and highlighted. I laid them out, one by one, like tarot cards revealing a dark future. Olivia's eyes widened. What is that? Let me read you a little story, Olivia. It's called Day One: How I Decided My Sister's Perfect Life Had to End. I picked up the first page. Day 1, June 18th. Brunch today? Marcus wouldn't stop talking about the baby. Chloe, glowing at 33. Chloe, the successful architect. I'm so tired of her name. I run a gallery for trust fund kids, and my parents act like I'm a charity case. I am done being the runner up. Olivia's face was ashen. I continued. Day 15, July 3rd. I know how to do this. Chloe thinks she's untouchable with her fancy career. She won't see this coming. I need a way into her apartment first. Then I need to make her look like an unfit mother. Someone child services will take so seriously. They won't even listen to her side. Olivia shook her head. Stop. Where did you? Day 28, July 11th. Chloe comes to mom's every Sunday. She's so predictable. I'll run into her next week. Grab the key while she's distracted. I looked up. You did run into me, Olivia. You hugged me. You said you were excited for me. Then you stole my key. I didn't. Day 35, July 18th. Done. The key fob is with Marcus. Chloe hasn't even noticed. So naive. My voice trembled on the last word, but I pushed on. Day 47, July 30th. Found the perfect angle, Marcus will plant the drugs. When a newborn is involved, the system moves fast. They'll test her, she'll fail, and the baby will be in foster care before she can even hire a lawyer. Chloe won't have time to prove anything. Olivia was breathing in ragged little gasps. You can't use these. This is private. Day 75, September 2nd. Test run tonight. Marcus disabled the loft's front door camera. He left a decoy package. She never noticed. It's a perfect blind spot. I put the page down and met her gaze. You practiced, Olivia. You and my husband worked together to find a way to violate my home. Tears streamed down her face. But I wasn't finished. Day 82, September 9th. Told Marcus the final plan. He hesitated, but I reminded him this was his only way out of the marriage without losing half his fortune. He agreed to make the anonymous call himself. Olivia whispered, Chloe, please. Day 89, September the 16th. Tomorrow it's all set. Marcus will plant everything while Chloe's at her final doctor's appointment. He will make the anonymous tip to child services. By morning, Chloe will be under investigation. She'll lose her career, her reputation, her baby. She'll finally know true failure, and I'll finally be the one he helps. So long, perfect sister. I placed the last page on the table. The gallery was silent except for Olivia's desperate, shallow breaths. She stared at the pages, her entire world collapsing on a tabletop. I can explain, she rasped. Can you? I leaned back. Because I'm listening, Olivia. Explain to me why you and my husband spent 90 days planning to steal my child. Explain the burner phone. Explain why you practiced breaking into my home. Explain why you chose to frame a pregnant woman. Because you knew the system would be too biased to look for the truth. Olivia opened her mouth. A choked sound emerged. From my handbag, I knew my phone was recording. Every word, every shift of her eyes, every lie she had told, and the truth she was about to scream. Go ahead, I said evenly. Explain. Before Olivia confesses, comment guilty or innocent. Because in 60 seconds, she completely unravels. The texts, the evidence, the jealousy, it all comes out. And what she yells at me next, I wanted your life to burn, will be sent to my lawyer. Note, this narrative is for educational purposes. Any similarity to real persons is unintended. But if you want to witness the moment my sister's envy detonates her own life, stay tuned. This is the confession that ends a family. Olivia's jaw worked. Opened, then shut. I didn't. She stopped. Her hands were shaking violently. You misunderstood those messages. I was writing a screenplay, a thriller. I watched those shows. Olivia. My voice was calm. The plan? Explain the plan. Her face crumpled. You can't use those texts. They are illegal, Chloe. You can't. Legally obtained by a licensed private investigator, I stated. Entirely admissible. My husband's privacy does not extend to criminal conspiracy. But those are just words. Her voice went high and thin. They're just Angry words. I never actually. I slid the final piece of evidence across the table. A photograph taken by the PI. It showed Olivia on a street corner accepting a small bag from a known dealer. A luxury SUV, registered to Marcus, was parked a few feet away. This is registered to my husband's company. You had access to it. The photo was taken at 9:17 p.m. last night. My doctor's appointment was recorded from 9 to 10. I wasn't there. I looked her in the eye. But you were. Olivia stared at the picture, her breathing sharp and shallow. She lurched to her feet, shoving the chair back. You think you're so clever. Her voice was a razor's edge. I remained seated. Olivia slammed her palms on the table. You always had everything: the perfect grades, the perfect career, Marcus's perfect money. So, you decided to destroy it? I asked softly. Yes. She was screaming now, tears carving paths through her makeup. I wanted you to suffer. I wanted you to know what it feels like to lose the one thing you care about, to have nothing. I leaned forward. And my baby was just part of the plan? Olivia's laugh was chilling, broken. I didn't care about the damn baby. This was about you, about making you pay for having the life that should have been mine. The gallery was silent. Olivia panted, her chest heaving. My voice was soft. So you're admitting it. You conspired with my husband. You bought illegal substances to plant in my home. You tried to frame me. Olivia's face went slack. The fury vanished, replaced by sheer terror. Wait, no, that's not what I meant. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen twice. The call connected. My lawyer's voice came through, calm and professional. I have the recording, Chloe. It's all here. Olivia backed away from the table. No, no, wait. His voice was clear. Olivia Sutton. We have a full confession. Expect to be served within the hour for conspiracy to commit child endangerment, defamation, and a litany of other charges. She looked at me, her eyes begging. Chloe, please. I'm your sister. Marcus will be dealt with. I stood up, walked around the table, and looked her right in the eye. You stopped being my sister 90 days ago. My lawyer's voice continued from the phone, detailing the next steps. A restraining order will be effective immediately. Your assets will be frozen pending litigation. Don't try to contact her. Don't try to run. Olivia was sobbing. Chloe, Chloe, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't mean it. Please. I ended the call and walked out of the gallery. The text transcripts were still laid out on the table. The photograph, the bank statements, the evidence that had taken me 3 days to process, 3 days to accept, 3 days to dismantle my sister's life the way she tried to dismantle mine. I should have felt vindicated, powerful, relieved. Instead, I just felt empty, because I still hadn't processed the worst part. A cold memory surfaced of her college roommate who was expelled under a cloud of false accusations. And I knew this wasn't the first time Olivia had destroyed someone's life. The last victim was still out there, living with the wreckage. My lawyer's car pulled up. He looked exhausted. You handled that well, he stated. The confession was airtight, freely given, it's solid. I just nodded, silent. Detective Miller sat opposite me. We're denying her bail. She's a flight risk, a clear danger. The DA is filing charges today. Attempted murder, reckless endangerment, and a few others. She could get 20 years, easy. What about Mark? I asked, my voice feeling hollow. We're talking to him again this afternoon. Your sister-in-law tried to pin it on him. We checked her phone records. A text from Olivia pinged the tower just a mile from the crash site right after it happened. She was bragging to a friend, just like you thought. I shut my eyes briefly. You and the baby are lucky, Miller said. Olivia is stable, but still in the hospital. Her son has a minor concussion. They'll both be ready to testify. He paused. You stopped her, Chloe. If she had gotten away with this, she wouldn't have quit. People like her never do. I met his gaze. She won't quit now either, not even from behind bars. Miller's expression hardened. Then we'll make sure she stays there. He got up but then hesitated. One other thing. When we checked Olivia's history, something popped up. A case from 2 years ago involving a woman named Megan Vance. She was accused of stealing $100,000 from her firm. She lost her license, her reputation, everything. She's been working retail just to get by. A cold knot formed in my stomach. What does Olivia have to do with that? Megan worked at the same Chicago real estate brokerage. The evidence against her was fabricated. Fake wire transfers, doctored emails, and the person who supposedly uncovered the theft was Olivia. The room started to spin. Olivia framed her. That's our theory. Megan has always sworn she was innocent, but the case went nowhere. Miller placed a card on the table. Megan Vance lives in Lincoln Park, works at a bookstore on Clark Street. You should go see her. He left. I looked at the card. Megan Vance, a life ruined by my sister-in-law 2 years ago, and I never knew. Olivia had already perfected her craft on someone else. Someone who lost it all, someone still living in the ruins Olivia created. I grabbed the card, knowing my next step. By midday, Olivia was in a jail cell. By 1, Mark and his father were at the station with their lawyer. By 2, I was home, looking at a clue I should never have found. Miller had called me 20 minutes ago. Your in-laws got a lawyer fast. Arthur Croft is representing all 3 of them now. He's already trying to have Olivia's confession thrown out, claiming you coerced her. It wasn't coercion, I said. She confessed on her own. I know, the recording proves it, but Croft will fight it. He always does. Miller had paused. There's more, that red flag in Olivia's file, the Megan Vance case. I told you about her. I remember. Look into it, Chloe. If Olivia did this before, it establishes a clear pattern. It shows she's not a one-time thing. It proves she's a predator. I hung up and opened my laptop. Miller's words echoed in my head. Narcissists don't just jump to attempted murder. They build up to it. I plugged in the old hard drive from our storage unit and searched back past last year's files. Past 2025 to 2024. And there it was, a folder from May 2024, 2 years ago. I clicked it. Files appeared slowly, photos, receipts, and a single document labeled MV Project. My stomach lurched. Oh God, not another one. I opened the file. 20 entries from May to July 2024. I began to read. Day 1, May 18th. Megan Vance acts like she's so brilliant. Everyone at the brokerage adores her. Megan's listings are incredible. Megan signed 3 major clients. I'm tired of being in her shadow. She has to go. I scrolled down. Day 15, June 1st. I figured out how to get rid of Megan. She handles client escrow accounts. If a deposit goes missing from her login, it's simple. Day 25, June 20th. Got Megan's system password. She left her laptop open at a showing. What an amateur. Day 30, July 15th. It happens today. I'll move $100,000 from the client account to a ghost account using Megan's credentials. By tomorrow, she'll be out, probably facing charges, and I'll finally be the top agent. I felt nauseous. Olivia had done this before, framing someone and wrecking their life, 2 years before she came for me. I opened a new tab and searched Megan Vance Chicago fraud. The first hit was a Chicago Tribune article from July 17th, 2024. Star realtor Megan Vance, accused of stealing $100,000. I clicked the link. The story was brief and clinical. Chicago-based firm Sterling Properties has filed a complaint against former agent Megan Vance for embezzling $100,000 from a client account. Police report the digital trail is damning. Login records, transaction histories, and communications all implicate Vance. Vance denies all allegations, insisting she was framed. I did not do this, Vance stated outside the courthouse. Someone set me up. Prosecutors expect the case to move forward in the fall. I scrolled further. A second article from November 2024. Vance case dismissed, but career is over. Charges against Megan Vance were dropped after her defense found inconsistencies in the digital records. However, her professional reputation has been destroyed. She has been unable to secure a position in the real estate industry and remains unemployed. I found Megan Vance on a professional networking site. The profile picture was a few years old, a confident woman with a bright smile. The bio was crushing, actively seeking new roles. Her last job was at Sterling Properties, ending in July 2024. Nothing for 2 years. I scrolled through her posts. They were sporadic and desperate. Does anyone know of coordinator positions open to relocating? Seeking freelance marketing projects, references on request. The last one was from a year ago, then nothing. I found her current address through a public search, a small apartment in Lincoln Park. Rent was $900 a month. It was the kind of place you rent when you've lost it all and are just trying to survive. I stared at my screen. Olivia had destroyed this woman with cold, calculated precision, just as she'd tried to destroy me. And Megan had been living with the consequences for 2 years, never knowing who was truly responsible. I picked up my phone and dialed Miller. I found it, I said. Olivia did this before. A woman named Megan Vance, 2 years ago, same playbook. Framed for theft, planted digital evidence, ruined her career. Send it all to me, Miller replied. If we prove this pattern, our case is solid. It shows premeditation, intent, and that she's a repeat offender who will do it again. I'm going to see Megan, I told him. She has a right to know. Chloe, be careful. If Olivia framed her, Megan might be. She might want justice, I finished. Just like me. I hung up, took my keys, and drove to Lincoln Park. The apartment building was old, the paint faded, a world away from the polished professional in Megan's old photos. I stood before apartment 2B at 6 p.m. and knocked. I heard movement. The door opened, held by a chain. A woman's face appeared, gaunt and weary, with dark shadows under her eyes. She looked far older than her pictures, as if 2 years had aged her a decade. Yes? Megan Vance? She looked suspicious. Who are you? I took a deep breath. My name is Chloe Collins. My sister-in-law Olivia wrecked your life 2 years ago, and 3 days ago she tried to do the exact same thing to me. I think it's time we talked. Megan unlatched the chain. The small studio was maybe 400 square feet, but immaculate. This was a space for survival. A futon served as both bed and sofa. A small hot plate rested on a counter beside a mini fridge. There was no TV, just a laptop on a cheap desk and a pile of mail. Megan motioned to the futon. Sit. I'd offer you a drink, but her voice faded. She didn't have to explain. She couldn't spare it. I sat down. Megan remained standing, her arms folded defensively. You said your sister-in-law destroyed my life. Olivia Collins. I remember her. We were colleagues at Sterling Properties 2 years back. I know, I said, and I have something you need to see. I opened my laptop, located the MV project file, and turned the screen so she could see it. This is Olivia's private journal from that time. She wrote everything down. Megan's hands shook as she scrolled through the text. Her face grew pale. Day 1, she read aloud. She wrote about me. Megan Vance thinks she's so talented. She continued reading. Day 15. I know how to get rid of Megan. Day 25. Stole Megan's system password. Her voice broke on the last one. Day 30. I'll transfer 100,000 using Megan's login. Oh my God, she whispered. She wrote it all down. She planned the whole thing. Just like she planned what she tried to do to me, I said gently. Megan sank onto the futon next to me, her eyes fixed on the screen. I told everyone I was framed. My manager, the police, my parents, nobody believed me. She turned to me, tears finally falling freely down her face. How could they doubt it? The evidence was airtight. Marcus's records, wire transfers, my login, my laptop. I believe you, I whispered. Sophie's composure broke. She scrubbed at her eyes with a clenched fist. Explain it to me, I urged. Everything. Sophie inhaled shakily. 2 years ago, I was a junior architect at Apex Design Seattle. I was excelling. I had just secured 3 major high-rise contracts. My director was grooming me for a senior position. She trailed off. Chloe started 6 months after I did. Initially, she was all smiles and support, but a nasty competitive streak emerged. Any project I secured, she tried to undermine. Every blueprint I proposed, she found fault with. She turned my career into a battle I never wanted to fight. Sophie's jaw clenched. Then, in August of 2022, a $75,000 client deposit vanished. The server logs pointed to my credentials. The funds were wired to an untraceable crypto wallet. I was fired that afternoon. The firm pressed charges. I liquidated my savings to hire an attorney. And in court, I prompted. The digital trail was damning, Sophie said. My lawyer negotiated a deal to avoid a criminal record if I paid restitution and signed an NDA, but my career was over. The entire Seattle architecture community blacklisted me. Any background check showed the fraud investigation. I sent out 200 resumes, landed 2 interviews, and got 0 offers. She gestured at her small apartment. I've been delivering for Amazon and Lyft for 2 years just to live here. My parents cut me off, ashamed of the family name. Her voice became a whisper. I lost it all. My future, my savings, my family, all because of Chloe. I saw her then, a reflection of my own past 3 days, accused, arrested, and utterly alone. But Sophie had no weapon to defend herself. She'd been trapped in the ruins for 2 years while Chloe moved on to her next target. Me. Sophie, I said, I can prove Chloe did it. I have her own words, her plans, on a hidden drive. And after what she did to me, trying to frame me for attempted murder, we can get your case looked at again. Sophie's eyes shot wide. Reopen it now? It's a pattern, I insisted. Chloe destroyed you 2 years ago. She tried to destroy me last week. It's her signature move. Gain access, create a disaster, and pin it on her rival. If we present this pattern to the DA, they'll see she's a predator, not some one-off criminal. Sophie just stared. If we prove this, could I get my life back? I don't know, I answered honestly. But we have to try. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, then she leaned forward, her face buried in her hands. When she looked up, her expression had shifted. The weariness was there, but beneath it was a flicker of steel. Determination. Tell me what I need to do. Be at the police station tomorrow morning, I said. Make a formal statement. Tell them exactly what happened in 2022. I'll provide the cloud drive data as corroborating evidence. Detective Miller, who's leading my case, will take your testimony and compare it to Chloe's confession. Do you think they'll listen this time? Sophie asked, her voice a fragile mix of hope and fear. They'll listen, I assured her, because this time Chloe has already admitted to framing someone. You're not just some desperate person claiming a setup. You're victim number 2 in a clear pattern. Sophie nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. There's one more thing, I added. If we do this, Chloe's high-priced lawyers will attack you. They'll claim you're a bitter opportunist seeking revenge. They will tear your life apart all over again. Sophie's expression hardened. Let them try. I've had nothing for 2 years. This time, I'm not going down without a fight. I got to my feet and held out my hand. We do this together. Sophie rose and shook it, her grip surprisingly strong. Together. On the way back to my car, my phone buzzed. It was Detective Miller. Amelia, we have a problem. Marcus's parents posted Chloe's bail. $500,000. She's been released. My blood ran cold. Just 20 minutes ago, her lawyer swore she was no flight risk with deep community ties. I remembered Chloe's words from the drive. Day 90. Even if Amelia suspects, she can't prove a thing. But Chloe didn't know I had her files. She didn't know about Sophie. And she had no idea what was coming next. Miller, I said, I need you to get Sophie Hayes in for a statement tomorrow morning, and I need a meeting with the DA. We aren't just charging Chloe with one crime anymore. We're charging her with 2. We're going to establish her as a serial predator. The following 3 days were a whirlwind of official statements, evidence reviews, and meetings as the DA's office pieced together a case to bury Chloe. Friday morning, September 20th. Sophie and I sat with Detective Miller and DA Eleanor Vance in a conference room at the King County Prosecutor's office. Vance was 58, with silver hair in a tight knot and intense gray eyes that missed everything. She'd prosecuted Seattle's worst criminals for 20 years. Miller said she was relentless. Perfect. We needed relentless. Sophie recounted her story meticulously: the professional jealousy, the stolen credentials, the $75,000 siphoned from the project budget, and the digital fingerprints Chloe planted across her entire work life. Her voice was calm, but I saw her hands shaking in her lap as she described being fired, the police arriving at her door, and her parents telling her she was a disgrace. Vance listened without a single interruption. She took no notes. Her expression gave nothing away. She simply watched Sophie with the detached focus of a surgeon, assessing how to best present this story to a jury. When Sophie finished, Vance leaned back, and the leather of her chair groaned in the quiet room. Why didn't you claim you were framed at the time? Sophie's voice didn't waver, though her hands trembled. I tried. Nobody believed me. The digital evidence was overwhelming. I slid the USB drive across the conference table. This is why. Vance plugged it in and read the draft emails in silence. Her face remained a mask, but a muscle in her jaw twitched. I saw her eyes scanning the screen, absorbing every calculated step Chloe had documented. When she finally looked up, her gaze was ice. This is methodical, calculated evil. Mrs. Hayes, we are officially reopening your case. Sophie gasped, and tears streamed down her face. Thank you. Vance offered no smile, simply closing the laptop. We will need the original drive and any other digital evidence you have. By Saturday, September 21st, the prosecutor's office had a dedicated strategy room. A large whiteboard dominated a wall displaying two timelines in blue and red. 2022, Sophie Hayes. June, professional jealousy. July, credentials stolen. August, $75,000 fraud. Sophie framed. 2024, Amelia Sterling. June, personal jealousy. July, car cloned. September, attempted murder. Amelia framed. Vance stood before the board, arms folded. It's the exact same method. This is her playbook. Miller agreed. We can file for pattern of criminal enterprise. That carries sentencing enhancements. I want it all, Vance commanded. Every file, every transaction, every person involved. I opened my laptop and displayed the evidence I had gathered. Both sets of draft emails from 2022 and 2024. Financial statements, crypto purchases, payments to a forger for the cloned license plate, and the offshore transfers from Sophie's case. Digital forensics, including browser histories, deleted texts, and login data. Our witness list included Sophie Hayes, the other driver once she could speak, her 7-year-old daughter, and the arresting officer, the Uber driver who saw the fleeing vehicle. Vance's junior prosecutor, a sharp young man named Leo, took detailed notes as I laid everything out. He was maybe 30, impeccably dressed with an intense focus. He never interrupted, but I could see him building the narrative in his mind that Vance would unleash in court. After I presented, Vance turned to Miller. How strong is the 2024 confession? Ironclad, Miller replied. It was voluntary. Chloe had a complete meltdown in interrogation. It's all on video. She said she wanted me to suffer and didn't care if the other woman died. Those were her exact words. A hint of a grim smile touched Vance's lips. Excellent. Let's make sure she does. On Sunday, September 22nd, Vance summoned us back to her office. Sophie and I sat together while Miller stood by the door. A thick file lay on Vance's desk. She opened it. These are the charges we are filing against Chloe Sutton. She began reading from a list for the 2024 incident. 2 counts of attempted murder, aggravated assault, felony hit and run, reckless endangerment of a child, identity fraud, and obstruction. She turned the page. For the 2022 incident, grand larceny of $75,000, wire fraud, identity theft, and violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Another page, and pattern enhancements, including racketeering under state RICO laws, and a designation as a professional criminal due to planned offenses against multiple victims. Vance looked up at us. With a full conviction, she will face 25 to 30 years in a state penitentiary. She won't be eligible for parole for the first 15. A heavy silence filled the room. 25 to 30 years. Chloe would be in her 50s before she was free again. With her gone, the atmosphere in Donovan's office grew tense. Chloe shifted uncomfortably. And my mother and father? My question came out flat. Donovan's gaze softened. Robert and Eleanor faced their own indictment for conspiracy, filing a false report, that emergency call, and being accessories. If they cooperate, they might see probation. If not, he trailed off. They could get 2 to 5 years apiece. I gave a slow nod. They chose their side. Donovan shut the file. The arraignment is Monday at 9 a.m. She will likely plead not guilty. Then we get ready for court. I'll need you both on the stand. Chloe and I exchanged a look. She affirmed. We'll be there. As we left the DA's office, the Boston sun felt harsh. Even in September, the heat from the pavement was intense, the air thick with the smell of tar and city fumes. Chloe and I walked wordlessly to the parking structure. We didn't speak until we were beside my sedan. She turned to me then. Julia. Her voice was strained. Thank you for standing by me, for seeing this through. I met her eyes. This woman whose life my sister had shattered. Something clicked into place for me. It wasn't just about clearing my name now, it was about ensuring Charlotte never ruined another person. It's not over, I told her. After she pleads not guilty, the real fight begins. Chloe agreed. I'm prepared. But I kept my fear to myself, the terror that Charlotte was free on bail. She knew I was the source of the evidence. She knew about the encrypted drive, about Chloe, about the case Donovan was constructing, and she was cornered. A cornered animal is a dangerous thing. I remembered an entry from her digital ledger. Day 90. Even if Julia finds out, there's no proof. But now I had it all. And Charlotte was aware, meaning she would either flee or fight back. I couldn't decide which was worse. Monday, September 25th, Suffolk County Courthouse. I watched from the gallery as my own sister denied 15 charges. The room was full, press in the back, notebook scribbling. Sarah Miller's family sat with the prosecution. My own parents sat right behind Charlotte, their lawyer between them. I was by myself. Charlotte arrived in a sharp navy dress, her appearance flawless, not a prison uniform in sight. She was still out, still walking free. The judge, a formidable woman in her 60s named Eleanor Vance, stared down. Charlotte Hayes, you're charged on 15 counts, including 2 of attempted homicide, aggravated assault, felony hit and run, child endangerment, grand larceny, obstruction, embezzlement, multiple counts of fraud, and criminal enterprise under the RICO Act. Reading the list took a full 30 seconds. Each charge felt like a blow. How do you plead? Charlotte's voice rang out, steady. Not guilty, Your Honor. A chill went through me. She intended to fight this. Donovan rose. Your Honor, the state moves for remand. The defendant is a clear threat to witnesses, particularly her sister, Julia Hayes. Peterson, her attorney, stood. Your Honor, my client has met all bail conditions. She is not a flight risk and has strong community ties. Judge Vance peered at Charlotte. Bail continues, but Miss Hayes, you are ordered to have 0 contact with Julia Hayes or Chloe Vance. Any violation means immediate custody. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor. The trial date is December 2nd, 2024. Court's dismissed. The gavel sounded. I got up, moving through the departing crowd. In the main hall I saw them. Charlotte, Robert, Eleanor, and Peterson already mapping out their next move. Robert saw me and moved toward me. Julia, the family needs to discuss this. I didn't stop. I have nothing left to say. Eleanor's voice trembled. Please, honey, Charlotte made an error. She is still your flesh and blood. I paused and turned. She tried to frame me for a decade in prison. That's not an error, that's a betrayal. Clara stepped into my path. her eyes devoid of warmth. "This is on you, Amelia, for ruining this family." My voice was a whisper. "It was ruined 90 days ago by him." A security guard materialized between us. "Ma'am, you need to leave." She held my gaze, then turned, letting our parents escort her from the gallery opening. I saw them vanish into the crowd, knowing in that sterile, white walled space it was the end. The next 3 weeks became a blur of asset division. Week 1 was spent in my attorney's glass walled office, preparing my statement for the arbitrators. "Stick to the question, don't add details. They'll call you resentful. Keep your composure." We went over the evidence for hours, the screen recordings I'd made, the highlighted ledger entries, financial trails of crypto and shell accounts, every brick I had laid for the case. Week 2. Sarah Miller was released from the hospital. 6 weeks post-crash, she could walk and speak enough to take the stand. Donovan had us meet. Sarah was gaunt, her arm in a brace, but her eyes were sharp. "Thank you," she said, "for uncovering what happened, for proving it was her." I mumbled something about being sorry. "It wasn't on you?" She took my hand with her good one. "You made her stop. That's all that counts." Her daughter Emma, just 7, was too fragile to testify. Donovan used a video deposition with a trauma expert asking soft questions. I viewed the tape once, watching the child describe the impact. Her mother's screams. I couldn't bring myself to watch it a second time. Week 3, Peterson tried to get the evidence tossed, starting with the encrypted drive. He called it an invasion of privacy. Judge Vance disagreed. It was family property, access was not illegal, motion denied. He then argued all digital evidence was tainted, also denied. The user terms were clear. Access was valid. Motion denied. Chloe's deposition was next. I watched from another room as she recounted 2 years of hell. She was unshakable. Peterson's team questioned her for 2 hours, trying to find a crack. She never wavered. On October 15th, Donovan called me for a final prep. "You'll testify for 4 to 6 hours. Peterson will go after your credibility. He'll say you faked the ledger out of jealousy, that you manipulated everything. Be stone, I will. He'll call your data recovery hacking." It was not. "We know, but he wants the jury to have doubts. You must be solid," I agreed. Donovan leaned back. "Julia, I've prosecuted sociopaths for 20 years. I've never seen a record like this. Most try to cover their tracks. Charlotte cataloged everything like a trophy. That gives us the edge. Her own words will be her downfall. What if they don't buy that the ledger is hers? Then we play the confession from the interrogation video. Charlotte screaming, 'I wanted her to lose everything.' You cannot fake that kind of raw malice. Peterson can't explain that." He stood up. "Go home and rest. Monday, December 2nd at 9 a.m., we put her away for good." The night before sleep was impossible. I looked out at the city lights, thinking of Charlotte's expression in the courthouse, which was not fear but defiance. She truly believed she would walk. Peterson's plan was obvious. Discredit me. Portray me as a bitter, tech-savvy sister who fabricated it all. Plant a seed of doubt. But he had no answer for Charlotte's own voice on that recording. I had watched that clip dozens of times to steel myself for court. Each time Charlotte shrieked, "I wanted her to lose everything," a part of me turned to ice. Tomorrow a jury would hear it. They'd see the digital ledger. They'd hear Sarah Miller's story. They'd listen to Chloe Vance describe her stolen life. They would hear my testimony, explaining how I pieced it all together. And they would determine if my sister would be imprisoned for the next 30 years or if she would go free. December 2nd, 2024. The trial of Charlotte Hayes commenced on a cold Monday. It ran for 5 days that felt like 5 years. The courtroom was full each day, with reporters, victim advocates, and locals following the high-profile case dot model. I was in our Chicago penthouse, 8 months pregnant, my sister Clara beside me. From 60 floors up, the city looked like a circuit board. My husband Julian, a real estate mogul worth $100 million, gave me this life. Clara always admired it. He worships you, Amelia, she'd say. This life, the baby, it's perfect. I saw sisterly love, not the sharp edge of envy. She thought I had everything, and I thought she was happy for me, this woman who was my only family. The next day, I was organizing files on our family cloud account for the nursery. I clicked on a folder Clara must have synced by mistake, labeled Aspen Getaway. My heart beat a little faster. Julian's last business trip was to Aspen. I opened it. There was Julian, not with business partners, but with Clara. They were at a candlelit dinner, holding hands. My breath caught. In another picture, his hand rested on her flat stomach, a gesture of sickening intimacy. My world tilted as I clicked through image after image. It was all there, a documented affair. I felt the baby kick. A small life, oblivious to the wreckage of its family. The final photo was a selfie of them kissing, snow falling around them. When Julian came home that night, smelling of expensive cologne and lies, I was waiting. The Aspen photos were a slideshow on our 85-inch television. His smile faded, replaced by the pale, slack-jawed look of a man caught. He stumbled through denials, calling it a misunderstanding, a mistake fueled by stress. But the pictures didn't lie. His excuses were pathetic. I told him to get out. His perfect life shattered in an instant. He left, and the silence in the massive apartment was deafening. The life he'd built for me was a cage made of lies. I spent the night staring at the city lights, my future as uncertain as the darkness between the buildings. I met Clara the next morning at a small cafe. She walked in, not with shame, but with an unnerving confidence. She ordered a decaf latte, her hands steady. I felt like I was looking at a stranger. He was going to leave you, she said, her voice cold. He never loved you, not really, he loves me. Then the final devastating blow. And I'm pregnant too. The words hung in the air, a declaration of war. The betrayal was absolute, a wound so deep I couldn't breathe. I left without a word, abandoning my coffee and my sister. The life I knew was gone, burned to the ground by the two people I trusted most. I called a lawyer that afternoon, the best divorce attorney in the city. The battle would be brutal, Julian's empire against my pain. My parents called, pleading for me to forgive, to keep the family together. I cut them off too. The divorce was a war of attrition. His lawyers tried to paint me as unstable. My lawyer presented the simple, ugly truth. It was a high stakes game of he said, she said, played out in depositions and legal filings. Months crawled by, my belly grew, and with it, a fierce, protective resolve. Julian and Clara were a public spectacle. I focused on my health, on the little life I was bringing into the world alone. My son Leo was born on a rainy Tuesday. Holding him, the drama faded into background noise. The divorce settled a week later. I got the penthouse, sole custody, and a settlement that ensured my son would never want for anything. The terms were ironclad. Julian's perfect public image was now tarnished with the truth of his affair with his wife's sister. He was now financially tied to two women, two children, and a legacy of deceit. The last time I saw him was across a lawyer's conference table. He looked older, tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet desperation. He had what he wanted, but he had lost everything that mattered. Clara sent one last venomous text. You lost him. I deleted it without a reply. There was nothing to say. I hadn't lost anything. I had been set free. The door to my old life was closed for good. A year later, the penthouse was filled with laughter. We were celebrating Leo's first birthday. Friends and family, my chosen family, were all there. The space was no longer a monument to Julian's wealth, but a home filled with love. My friend Sarah squeezed my arm. You're a different person, Amelia, stronger. I knew she was right. The fire had burned away the weakness, leaving something unbreakable in its place. I had started my own art consultancy firm working with private collectors. It was thriving. I was no longer Julian Vance's wife. I was Amelia Vance, a mother, a businesswoman, the architect of my own life. I occasionally heard things about Julian and Clara. They had a daughter. They lived in a new, ostentatious mansion, but their life was built on a foundation of betrayal, and that's a debt that never gets paid. I looked at Leo smashing his hands into his birthday cake and I smiled. My son would grow up knowing strength and integrity. I had protected him from the poison. My victory wasn't revenge, it was my peace. Judge Walsh glanced at Chloe. Please rise. Chloe stood, her chains making a soft metallic sound. The judge's tone was devoid of emotion. I've reviewed all materials. This was not an impulsive act, it was a methodical and cruel plan. She looked back at her notes. You systematically ruined one life out of pure jealousy, then plotted to destroy your own sister. A pause filled the courtroom. You've expressed no genuine remorse. Your confession was an outburst of anger. Given the pattern of destructive behavior, I'm applying sentencing enhancements. For the financial crimes against Rachel Murphy, you will serve 10 years. For the charges related to your sister, your total sentence is 25 years. A gasp echoed from the gallery. Chloe's knees gave way. Judge Walsh struck her gavel once. The defendant is remanded into custody. Two deputies helped Chloe to her feet and led her away. I felt nothing at all. It was finally done. I looked out from my office at SecureNet. Director of Cybersecurity, a $250,000 salary. Last year's bonus created a $50,000 trust for Emma Fisher. A fresh start for her, a clean slate for me. First, a seven-figure settlement from Arthur's tech firm, a quiet apology for my pain. My sister Chloe sent a single text. I ruined everything. For you, for me. I'm sorry, I deleted it. I kept the ultrasound picture on my nightstand. The new interior designer, a woman named Sarah, worked just a few blocks away. The divorce was finalized the day Chloe moved out. She'd taken $10,000, packed her car, and driven back to Portland, severing ties with our parents, who were mortified. Last I heard, she was working in a coffee shop, her art career on hold indefinitely. I never thought she had it in her, my mother had cried. She made her choice, I told her. My son, Leo, and I were healing. I had returned to my job as a curator at the Seattle Art Museum. Leo was in daycare 3 days a week. The sleepless nights were less frequent. He had my eyes, but he smiled like I used to. Arthur Vance called me once 2 months ago. You were right, he'd said, about everything. I'm just glad he's okay. He is because of me. Arthur and my father had a bitter falling out. My father returned every dollar Arthur had ever invested in his company, nearly $80,000. The Bellevue waterfront home sold for $3.2 million. After legal fees, I got half, plus another $500,000 in damages. He moved to a sterile one-bedroom apartment in South Lake Union. I saw him once a month. Handoffs for Leo, awkward, silent, brief. We didn't talk about Chloe. Chloe was a ghost in Portland, Oregon, a city 2 hours south of me. She'd sent one email 3 months ago, 3 words. Please forgive me. I never replied. I didn't hate her anymore. I just felt nothing, and that was its own kind of prison. Today I sat across from Sarah at a cafe overlooking Puget Sound. The October mist hung in the air, cool and gray. Sarah smiled. I got the gallery commission. You earned it, I said. She reached across the marble tabletop and touched my arm. I never got to say thank you for the referral, for trusting me. We help each other, I said. We raised our teacups in a silent toast. Sarah's phone chimed. She glanced down. Contractor meeting in 15. Go, I said. I've got this. She waved from the door. Drinks next week. Absolutely. I sat for a moment watching the ferries glide across the water. 6 months ago, I discovered my husband was having an affair. My own sister had tried to steal my life, but she underestimated one thing. I was Eleanor Vance. My job was finding beauty in chaos, and the ugliest mess I'd ever curated was my own marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. A new photo of Leo. I smiled, left cash on the table, and walked out into the crisp autumn air. Whole. Not just free from a toxic marriage, but from a sister whose jealousy had nearly cost me everything. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally home. And to you hearing this, remember my story. 3 times I could have ignored the signs. When I saw the charge for the art studio, when I found her portrait of my husband, when I heard their laughter from the loft. But my intuition kept screaming, because some truths demand to be seen, no matter the cost. Looking back, I don't regret leaving Arthur, but I regret not trusting my gut sooner. The envy, the endless competition, the way she made my accomplishments feel small. Family jealousy doesn't start with a bang. It's a slow poison disguised as love until one day you find a receipt that unravels your entire world because your own sister wanted your life. Don't be naive like I was. Don't wait until you find a secret art studio rented by your husband to realize that betrayal is not just for strangers, it's real and it is devastating. Here is my hard earned wisdom: trust your intuition. If a family member makes you feel insecure, inadequate, or on edge, even if you love them, create distance, because that kind of poison spreads. They know your schedule, your bank accounts, your deepest insecurities, and if they choose to, they will use that knowledge to dismantle you piece by piece. You might not be as lucky as I was. Family betrayal taught me that a shared childhood doesn't guarantee a shared heart. So if you connected with this, drop a comment. Have you ever been let down by someone you were supposed to trust unconditionally? Share this story with a friend who needs to hear it and subscribe, because the next tale I tell explores what happens when a mother turns against her own child. Thank you for listening. And if this story is not for you, I understand. Please find other content that makes you feel good. Stay aware out there.